Hello and welcome to Open Line. I'm Starlene Stringer. On this edition of Open Line, we're going to discuss the resources available to anyone in the community affected by domestic violence. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and there are several events in the lead up to October that will help shine a light on the issue. The big message for all is there is help and there is hope. Joining me are Alicia Hernandez with the Irving Family Advocacy Center, Brent Trotter with Brighter Tomorrows, and Tasneem Rajan with Chetna DFW. They're going to address domestic violence within the South Asian community when we refer to Chetna. But first, I want to thank you all so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
It is our pleasure. I know it is so concerning that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 7 men will experience a violent partner at some time in their life. And that is an alarming number for sure. Does that correspond to each of you and what you're seeing at your agencies? I want to ask all of you that question, but we'll start with you, Alicia. Do you see that to be true?
Yes, ma'am, it is. Obviously, a lot of the male components don't report just for various reasons. Some of them don't want to have that stigma of, I got beat up by my wife or girlfriend. But we do see those numbers increasing with the male reporting the abuse, but we see an alarming of women.
So sad. And same question for you, Brent. Do those numbers seem to be true?
Absolutely. We see that bear out in our agency, but we also see it in state statistics as well, that we're seeing, obviously, women are the primary ones who are victims, but we're seeing more and more men who are coming forward too. Interesting.
Tasneem, do you find the same correlation with the South Asian community as well?
We do, and unfortunately we find like the statistics are a little bit higher for our population. It tends to be closer to 40% of female victims are reporting to, facing some sort of domestic violence in their lifetime.
Now, Tasneem, there may be some people who are not familiar with Chetna and what you do. Can you tell us more about the organization?
Yeah, so we provide culturally specific services specifically to the South Asian population. So when we talk about South Asia, we're referring primarily to India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Bhutan. And then, so our services are kind of our niche areas, that culture-specific realm.
Thank you for explaining that to people who may not be aware. And Brent, when you talk about Brighter Tomorrows, there are some people there that do not know what Brighter Tomorrows is that may be watching right now. Can you tell us more?
Well, Brighter Tomorrows is Irving's only domestic violence shelter system. We provide a comprehensive array of services from emergency shelter, which the primary concern in that particular program is safety and security of both mom and her children, because finally, when she does leave her abuser, she does bring her children, and so we've got to make sure that we provide for that as well. And then after that program, and after the safety is ensured and whatever legal avenues need to be taken are taken through law enforcement or legal directions, we are able to move them into transitional housing. And the transitional housing is a program that allows them to get back on their feet, whether it's working or needing to go to school or going back to work, finding a job so that they can begin to save money and begin to start their life over again.
Thank you. And last but not least, the Family Advocacy Center. Alicia, what services do y'all provide?
Normally we provide service to any victim of a crime in Irving. So if you're victimized here, live here, you can receive services at our center for free. We have a counseling center that provides strictly ongoing counseling services for victims of domestic violence, child abuse, robberies, sudden death, just anything that's traumatic that happened to that person. They can receive the services free. Then we have the Victim Services Department, which we provide on crisis counseling if something's going on right now, safety parameters for that person. We help with crime victims compensation to help them get into an apartment, fill out that paperwork for them, get that process started. And then we also have the Child Protective Services there as well, along with our detectives who do child abuse and domestic violence.
Thank you. And so you can tell, like we were talking about the topic, there's help and there's hope, and y'all are providing that right here in North Texas. I want to come back to you for a minute, Brent. Oftentimes when people hear the words domestic violence, they think it's physical violence, but it goes beyond that, doesn't it?
Well, obviously it does, and it certainly includes that, and we don't want to eliminate that from the list. but emotional abuse is certainly a part of that as well. Generally speaking, in the male on female, it becomes a very controlling kind of thing. Financial controls are put in place where money is not easily accessed by the female partner. Then it can escalate to the verbal kinds of abuses, demeaning conversations, demeaning comments, fits of jealousy, accusations being made about where were you, what did you do, and who were you with. Then it escalates even to checking the phone and looking into those kinds of things. So the big word, I think, is control, but underneath all of that are these behaviors that begin to demonstrate in the life of the male, generally speaking, toward the female, where she's so intimidated that she feels like this is the best she's ever going to experience in life. So it's, just to speak on the positive side, it's a courageous moment when she finally says this, enough is enough. And unfortunately, and I don't know what other statistics bear out, our statistics bear out that it is the eighth time that she finally says this is enough. So that means she endures that abuse and leaves 7 times until the 8th time when she says, I'm done, I'm finished, and she finally seeks the help that she needs to break loose from that and not to keep on, but there is this part of that personality that's so controlling that says, I'm sorry, you know it's been stressful at work, and you know I love you, and you're the only one for me. All of these kinds of things that can begin to draw her back into that whole area of abuse and in that cycle of abuse, so that really and truly she feels trapped, and until she is able to make her way through that, she's not going to be able to do it. So our words are, if you are in an abusive relationship and it sounds familiar to hear what you just heard, then we ask you to seek help, and there are ways you can do that. We have a hotline, we have other opportunities that you can look into how you can get help.
Thank you. I saw Alicia nodding her head in agreement. What would you like to add to that description of what domestic violence is?
Picking back off Brent, a lot of people feel that, it is just the physical aspect of it, but the emotional part of it, the psychological part of it, the financial part of it is a big thing that we see a lot. They don't have the support to maintain an apartment, or they're unemployed, or they're unemployable because they're not documented here. And that has a lot to do with that, of why they stay, because they don't feel like they have those options, or they don't feel the options are out there, or it's hard to get those options to them because some don't have vehicles, some can't drive to the Family Advocacy Center to get help. And so there's just so many barriers that keeps them in the relationship, and it's a case-by-case basis on their circumstances in their relationship.
Interesting. And Tasneem, would you say that there's a difference when it comes to the cultural perspective? Is the definition kind of the same? What are you seeing?
Yeah, there is a difference. So we do have our population face the same type: physical, emotional, financial abuse. But there's another component that ties back to culture that we see. So when we're talking about barriers, one of the biggest barriers for our clients is immigration and that immigrant status. We have a largely immigrant population. Most of them are here legally, but they have some sort of dependent status on their spouse. So for example, their spouse will come here to work and they have a dependent H-4 status. So that just adds an additional complexity when they want to leave, because sometimes their children are U.S. born, and going back home isn't, an option for them. If they want to seek independent status, then they have to apply for things like the U visa or the VAWA petition. But what we know about that is it's costly and it's lengthy as well, and it's not always assured. Another barrier that we tend to face within our agency is that there is multiple abusers. So when you're living in a larger extended family, for example, you may have your in-laws that are abusing you, or your own family sometimes may not be supportive of you leaving that relationship. And then couple that with the lack in the area of culturally specific services. They may not speak the language if they want counseling, or even help with their court cases. And so one of the things we do as an agency is we try to bridge that gap and provide very culturally specific services. So we have a confidential helpline and counseling, and all those come, in different languages so that they can, communicate in the language that they're most comfortable in.
I see. And how often is sexual violence an element of the problem?
I think, as you guys probably also face, it's very prevalent. I think unfortunately, especially when you're married, I think a lot of people think that it's a duty of a spouse to perform sexually. And so a lot of times I think people aren't even aware of the fact that sexual abuse is happening to them. So we find it to be very frequent in these cases.
Yeah, I mean, not to talk terms, but there is such a thing as marital rape, and there is those kind of things that happen, unfortunately. And in the mind of, and I don't dare presume to be able to get into the mind of the female, but oftentimes there's this is normal. This is what every woman goes through. It's just that's not something that's talked about in public in a lot of religious contexts, particularly and especially in the context of this is just the way it is for everybody, and that's part of what needs to be overcome as far as the conversations go.
Do you think that's happening? Do you find that people are having more conversations, more open conversations?
Well, it's being encouraged, but I think that there are those taboos in culture and in communities and whatever that say, this is not something you talk about. I think social media kind of frees us up to talk about things that we may not talk about face to face, but at the same time, in a controlling relationship, those things are monitored if they're even allowed at all.
Interesting. Okay, I want to get these numbers right, Brent. So let me look here. It says the National Domestic Violence Hotline released their annual impact report back in June, and they noted an increase of 39% in contacts, 48% increase in website visits, and a 147% increase in people reaching out for help via online chat. So do you think those statistics really reflect the incidence of abuse or more victims reaching out, or are there other factors that may be reflecting in those numbers, would you say?
I think it represents more awareness of what it's like. So the more we educate and the more we inform, people are responding saying, wow, that sounds just a little too familiar. And I think that it's trickling down into the younger generations. We're moving into the schools to begin to have conversations about what bullying looks like, what dating violence looks like, and we're trying to educate their peers so that when they see it in one of their friends, that they are able to recognize that and maybe be a little more preventative and intervention in a way as a friend to say, the way he talks to you or the way he treats you or the way he acts towards you doesn't feel right. Because if we educate the group, then the group becomes the watchdog for each other. It may not be a good word, but it becomes sort of a peer guided kind of thing. So when we get into them younger, and I'm tragically informed by the folks who do our education, that some of these young boys as early as junior high emerge to say, I did not know it was okay. I did not know it wasn't okay to hit a woman, because they've been so exposed to it, overexposed to it, that it's become a normal part. It really is sad. It's become a normal part of their experience.
Interesting. Alicia, are you guys seeing a change in numbers as well as people contacting or seeking help? Have you noticed any difference?
Yeah, I mean, our offense reports are increasing. We get at least 200 to 300 offense reports a month.
Wow.
And I think it's because, like I said, the education is out there. People are realizing there is help out there. Some people come to our office and had no idea we even existed when they come to our office, because they were informed, like I said, like by a school teacher or the counselor or somebody, their neighbor said, hey, I use the FAC, you may want to go talk to them. So I think just letting people know that we're out there, what we can offer them, the support that they can receive from us and from the counseling department and other agencies that we can refer them to, I think they're kind of saying, at least I have a way out if I need it.
I think other people have probably had their mouth dropped like mine did. You guys are aware of those numbers, but when you said 200 to 300 a month, it was like, wait, what? I'm thinking you're going to say a year. You say a month. That's a lot of people, and still that's not everyone who's being violated, which is really, really sad.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's one of those things that, like I said, a lot of it's not reported. Because a lot of times they'll report it, they go through the system, that's not what they thought it was going to look like, so when they get abused again, they don't call the police.
Wow. So for those who are reporting, Tasneem, are y'all seeing an increase at Chetna this past year?
We have, and a lot of that, as Brent said, is down to education. We're expanding our education and even our prevention services, and offering things for the community. We've unrolled a whole prevention series this summer on topics such as bullying in children, stress management and healthy coping techniques, and our last one actually that's coming up this weekend is healthy communication and relationships. So I think there is a direct correlation every time we go out and we do some sort of awareness piece and we educate the community, as Brent said, where people are recognizing more and more in their relationships something's not quite right.
Well, I'm glad you just said that, because I want to give you kind of a two-part question here. With the Me Too movement that's been going on and it being more out in the public and people talking about it more, do you think that's helping, and do you see the stigma changing today than how it was in the past when people talked about domestic violence?
Absolutely. So we're in our 14th year, and I can say when we first used to go out to events, people would just ignore the information, kind of, we weren't, domestic violence isn't the sexiest cause, and so it wasn't getting that much limelight in social media or in media in general. And I think the Me Too movement has been really integral in helping people realize that, one, they're not alone, and two, that we need to start taking that stance to talk about what's happening. And so definitely I think there is a correlation in that we are seeing that trickle down to some of our calls where people are feeling more encouraged in this atmosphere to come forward.
I see Brent nodding his head saying, yes, you can relate.
Well, I do understand. I mean, the more people hear, the more they say, gosh, that sounds very much like my experience as well. And it does give courage to do that. In the privacy of your own life, there is this sense, well, it'll bring a lot of shame to me, it will bring, it'll be embarrassment to me, and the fear of what will happen. And I think in a lot of cases for a lot of female victims, they've been failed by the system. And if they do report it, that doesn't go the way they expected, or it doesn't bring the safety they hoped, then it makes it even more dangerous for them. So we've got to be, very careful. But I agree 100% that when you become aware of something, you become more likely to respond to it as well. And I think that's the way it is with everything in education. The thing I think disappoints me in this whole issue, I'd like to be able to come on here one day and you interview me and we've closed our doors because we're done. Yeah. We finished it. We
Wouldn't
fixed
that be
it.
great?
And it would be great. But it's a sad thing, because most people don't get involved in this because they've not experienced it yet. Mm-hmm. And it's like that with a lot of issues. So your mother has cancer, then you become a cancer advocate and things like that. Unfortunately, you don't want this to happen to raise up more advocates, but this Me Too movement has done just that. It's raised up some high-level, high-profile names to encourage people to do that, and certainly has done just exactly that.
Y'all both said awareness is making a difference. So I want to come to you, Alicia, because I know October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and there are a lot of great events that y'all three are taking part in and doing different things to spread awareness throughout the community. Now, something in particular that I know that you guys do that I love, I want to make sure I get the exact title of it correct. You are raising awareness through Illuminate Irving, and it's a way that y'all observe Domestic Violence Month, and it is huge. I see the videos and the pictures, and it is amazing. Tell us about this event.
What Illuminate Irving is, it's just an event that we can, like I said, education to the community, and also do the remembrance of people who have lost their lives due to domestic violence, or the clients that we serve, the victims that we talk to, and the victims out there who aren't ready to report, just to let them know that we're here to support them in any way they need to be supported, and when they're ready, that we're here for them. I believe this is our third year. Last year's got canceled due to the weather, but we are going strong on it this year, and this year it's October 15th. It's on a Tuesday. It's at the same place at the Mandalay Canal in Las Colinas. It starts at 5:30 in the afternoon, and it finishes roughly around 7:30 when they start putting the lanterns in the water. It's a family-friendly event, and there's things for kids, there's things for adults. There's going to be different vendors from different agencies out there to let them know what's out there in case they need those services or know somebody who needs those services. as well. So it's a really big event. It's wonderful.
It is. We were looking at video. It looks amazing. And I know too that there's also a group of people who are there because they've lost a loved one to domestic violence. Will you talk on that part of it?
Yeah, what we do is we try to find somebody who lost someone who was impacted by domestic violence, and kind of share their story out there and let them know, how it affected their family during the event and after the event, and what some of them got services from our agency after the fact or during the incident. So it's really good to have those out there because, like I said, it shows people that they're not alone, that there's people in the same situation that they're in, and it may do a light bulb, like, hey, this kind of, like Brent said, kind of sounds like me or somebody I know or love, so maybe I need to go reach out for those services and see what they can help me with.
That's wonderful. That gives them a little mechanism to cope and lets them know, like you said, they're not alone. Tasneem, I want to come back to you now because I know Chetna has some great events planned for Domestic Violence Awareness Month too. Tell us about them.
Yeah, so we have, like I said, this weekend, September 7th, we have our last prevention series workshop, and that's open to the public. You can go on Eventbrite and find it under our name, Chetna. And that's healthy communications and relationships. And then to kick off Domestic Violence Month just a little early, we're doing a 5K walk and a 1K fun run. We've been doing that for the last several years in collaboration with Hope Store, New Beginning Center, Texas Muslim Women's Foundation, Families to Freedom, Turning Pages, and Dallas Iranian Women's Association. So that walk will be September 28th, and the registration fee is pretty nominal, $35, and then there's a 1K fun run for $15. There's also virtual running opportunities if you can't make it out. But as we were talking about, we're also going to be taking part in Illuminate Irving. But this is an event that our walk takes place, on September 28th. It's a Saturday from 8 to 10, and it's at Gallatin Parkway in Richardson. So it's really a family-friendly event. Dogs and children are welcome. We usually have a fun activity for the kiddos planned. So yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun. And now, Brent, I know you guys have a big event coming up too, which is also a fundraiser for Brighter Tomorrow, and I love the name. It's Chocolate and Chic.
Well, the Chocolate and Chic happened last March. This next March is our next event, and it's going to be our 30th anniversary event. So we're going to move it from a luncheon to an evening event. Some of the details are still being gathered and unfolded, but Chocolate and Chic is one of our noonday luncheons that we have that we are able to raise funds. And so this year we want to celebrate our 30th anniversary by moving it to an evening event, and some of those details are coming together. But in conjunction with Domestic Violence Month, we are also participating in the Illuminate Irving. But our reach goes beyond just Irving into Grand Prairie, and so we're going to be having a vigil at the Grand Prairie Police Department on October the 10th at 5:30 to remember those who likewise have lost their lives to domestic violence, and to celebrate their life, and to honor those victims and let their families have a place as well. So it's one of those things, and just to be clear, and I know all of us are going to be able to nod our heads to this, but we don't just serve people in Irving. We've had people, I met a lady one time in our shelter who drove all the way here from Wisconsin.
Wow.
She gathered as much as she could, put gas in her car, and drove here from Wisconsin thinking this was far enough for her to get away, to get safety.
Good for her. She got out.
Good
and she
for
got
her
help.
when she did, and she brought her kids. And so we don't limit our services to just Irving or to the area, but we try to be as open as we can. And plus safety being the major issue, we're going to make sure that we work with and collaborate with other agencies to get them in a safe place.
Good deal. And you mentioned that she brought her children with her, and I want to talk about that. They're really your most vulnerable clients, and so in addition to domestic violence affecting adults, it affects children as well. And how does Brighter Tomorrows help?
Well, we do accept moms with their kids. Obviously, we also accept clients with their pets, because we have a pet opportunity for them to have their pets with them. But we also have a children's advocacy program. We provide counseling for our children, do play therapy, and all of the things that will be helpful to those kids as they learn to cope and understand what they have been through. It's a story, and I could put a name on it, but I won't, because there's this gentleman that's what I would just call a manly man, And I was just telling him the story one day as he was there, and I just pointed out, I said, these kids have seen something that they never should have seen. And just a big tear welled up in his eye, and he says, what do we do to stop it? And I said, that's why we exist. We're working to stop it, because I think all of us would agree that while we are being reactive to try to serve those who've been involved and who have been a part of sexual assault, domestic violence, we also are trying to be proactive to break the cycle so that the next generation does not have to deal with the numbers that we're seeing in some of the stats that you're quoting with people who are reaching out.
It's so sad. So many people are going through so many things. We're almost out of time, but I want to talk about a birthday celebration y'all recently had, Alicia. I know Ritter celebrated her birthday.
Ritter turned 3. He's our facility dog. He came from Canine Companions here out locally in Irving. And so what he does is he works with our, mostly with our child victims of trauma. So they were sexually assaulted, abused. He's specifically trained to work with them. So if they're closed, they're just closed out, they're shutting down. They'll ask them if they want to see the dog. And we have 2 handlers. One is my supervisor, Heather, and then Patricia, she's our child trauma counselor. So they'll go in the room with them, and Ritter just knows what he's doing. He's amazing. If they look like they're timid, he'll kind of back off a little bit. If they're receptive to him, he'll just go up there and just start like wiggling his tail and just kind of, welcoming them to the building. And so he's really awesome.
He sounds like he's awesome.
Yeah,
and you guys are doing awesome things in the community to help children and adults alike. I know there's a big day coming up, North Texas Giving Day. Tell us how important it is that people get involved and help out with that. We'll start with you, Tajneen, so you can tell people about how North Texas Giving Day really helps Chetna.
So this year our fundraising goal revolves around counseling. So we talked about, children's services, and at this time we have domestic violence counseling for adults, but what we know is that there is this intergenerational cycle of violence that, the kids that are growing up in these homes are witnessing the violence and then going on to be unfortunately abusers or victims themselves. And so one of the things that we want to enroll in the next year or 2 is children's services revolving around counseling as well. And so that's one of our fundraising goals for the year, is to increase those counseling services. And so North Texas Giving Day has just been a great platform for us to get the word out and access those bonus funds. So we hope that everyone in the community will use this time to donate a little early before the holiday season.
We hope they'll do that for all 3 organizations here today, that you guys are doing such a great job with your money. To close out the show, I want you to just tell us what people should do right now who may be watching, Brent, if you're in a situation you need help getting out of, and it's crucial that they do get safe. Tell us what they should do.
It's interesting. I would say that here's what we know, that victims who are linked to an advocate, to law enforcement, or to the court system have a better chance of survival and breaking that cycle than just remaining silent and being isolated in that relationship. So I would encourage someone to reach out to a hotline, to reach out to an advocate, to reach out to law enforcement, because those are the kinds of things that are going to be revolutionary in that person's life. It will move them from victim to survivor. If I can, and I go to the lethality review committee meeting. That's where we look at those who've died and where we failed them. And one of the things that we need to tell people is that we want to help.
For sure.
Let's not make you another victim.
We don't want any more victims. Thank you so much. And I know that number by heart. It's 1-800-799-SAFE. I want to thank all our special guests for being here today to shine a light on domestic violence and to show how we can all make a difference and help. Thank you for watching. I'm Starlene Stringer. Please be sure to join us on Thursday, October 3rd for our next edition of Open Line. We'll see you then.